Part of the world has not forgiven South Africa for introducing the noise from Vuvuzela from the 2010.
Well, they've anyway banned it at all the stadiums, so they can pretend like they've forgiven us, but they've eradicated
I'm
it.
sure that will enter into the world lexicon in 2010, and people are like, where the is this low register noise about? Hello, welcome to Comedy with an Accent podcast. I'm your Taiwanese comedian, Quan Wen. I interview comedians who perform English stand-up comedy but who are not native English speakers, or they can have very distinct British regional accent. This podcast is all about comedy, about accent, about languages, and about the comedy technique. So stay tuned if you're interested. Could you signal a clap or something? Hello, welcome back to such an artificial clap. Welcome back to another episode of Comedy with an Accent podcast. I have such a special guest today. Because of that, once again, I've decamped from Deptford, moving to central London, 21 Soho. The guest I have today is a star in his native South Africa. He also was twice the South African Comics Choice Award winner. Is that right?
Yes, but not the... This year I was nominated for Comic of the Year, which I didn't win, but... Once won Newcomer, and the other one was Breakthrough Act of the Year.
You see, and he also opened for Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
Let's welcome our guest today. Wait a second. I need to breathe before I pronounce your name. I practiced this a dozen times. Let's welcome Schalk Bezuidenhout. Is that acceptable?
No, that's good. Most people just get halfway through my surname and then just throw up.
Bezuidenhout.
People sometimes say Bezuidenhout or Bezuidenhout. But I think they're just trying to make it more European than it actually is.
Yeah.
It's just Bezuidenhout.
If you're wondering, don't try to spell it because my accent only make it more difficult. You need to look it up to understand. It's spelled like that. When I first saw your name, I thought you would be Schalk, which obviously is not.
That's also German. I don't know. The Afrikaans, we've invented a few nice snacks. But most of our names
Is your
Germany
name a
and
popular
Dutch.
name for Afrikaans speakers?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a famous rugby player also called Schalk.
We like to assume people know what Afrikaans is as a language, but we are in the era of TikTok, so chances are they don't. So in case you don't know, Afrikaans is one of the major languages spoken in South Africa, which has so many official languages. And actually, there are more Afrikaans speakers as the first language than English speakers.
In South Africa, yes.
Yeah, in South Africa. Afrikaans, how to say that, developed from the colonial Dutch in the 18th century or something. I don't know the details.
Unofficially, before that, Afrikaans started as like they used to call it kitchen Dutch because it was...
Kitchen Dutch?
Yeah, because it was like the sort of workers who worked for the Dutch started speaking their own version of Dutch, like the people who worked in the kitchen.
Oh.
I don't think exactly slaves, but I mean, they were more low-income sort of manual.
So what would you expect, for example, like Cockney London, people who work around the dock, and they would be considered working class?
Yes, so like the people who worked in the kitchen, they could speak Dutch, but they started playing around with it a lot more, and over the years started making their own version of Dutch, and then I think that is sort of how Afrikaans...
And we can say in the 21st century is a distant cousin of the modern Dutch language.
Definitely.
And a certain level of mutual understanding, even if you don't learn the other one.
Yeah, like I would say most Afrikaans people can definitely understand Dutch mostly. German, not so much. Yeah, I don't think the Dutch like to be referred to as cousins of Afrikaans.
Historical reasons.
They call. They
are not saints. I mean, they've been over the place doing horrible things. They try to rebrand themselves, but not that innocent. But understandably.
When I was in Amsterdam, they call Afrikaans baby Dutch.
I heard that.
Because they don't think Afrikaans is as developed of a language or... Yeah, they see it as like a much simpler Dutch.
Some grammar has been simplified compared to Dutch.
I guess so, but Afrikaans, once you go into poetry, books and stuff like that, then it becomes a very beautiful, complicated language.
This is always my favorite bit to talk about the origin, the background of the language, but in the actual podcast episode, you probably edit down to 20 seconds because there's only so much.
Yeah.
least it will bear the linguistic element of it. So Schalk is from South Africa, which is known as one of the major English-speaking countries in the world. However, South African, whose first language is English, is as little as 8%.
Yeah.
And the largest language group is actually Zulu, that represent about 24%. And there are more Afrikaans speakers than English speakers in South Africa.
Yeah.
Although you can say the lingua franca, the major language used in media and in government building is English.
Yeah, I would say
To an
English
extent.
is the common denominator in...
He looks frustrated. He doesn't like it, but he just have to live
No,
with
I
it.
have to think. I have to really think. No, I guess you would just say
You're
English
like,
is
this
the...
is a compromise I get. I much like to perform in my mother tongue, but to reach the international market, I
Yeah.
will do English comedy. Right, so that's the thing I smell from him, the frustration of an artist.
No, I actually prefer these days performing in English. Not prefer, oh my word, I'm going to get like so much shit from Afrikaans
It's
people
okay,
for saying...
because you have the 2 episodes on your podcast, the drunk ones. So
Yes.
You've said worse thing than prefer,
Yeah.
so you could. Yeah.
No, I like performing in English because, I don't know, I guess all second language speaking comedians can have that, not necessarily as a crutch, but like you can perform quite freely because if you make a mistake in English, it's funny then.
And we get away with it.
It's funny and you get away with it and it can like add to the character. And also you can almost in any place where you are be an outsider looking in. Whereas like if you're an English first language speaker in South Africa, if you come to England, you're not that much of a fish out of water than someone who's speaking a completely different language. You know, so you can always sort of criticize a little bit whatever country you go to from like a place of, oh, well, we don't do it like this. And it's interesting that you guys do it like this. And I feel like if you're another language, you have a bit more license to do that.
I have 3 points to add in response to that.
Yeah.
First, this is exactly what I do this podcast about. So I'm so grateful you do it. And actually, before I look you up, I wasn't sure whether you are a English South African speaker or a Afrikaans. So when I realized that your mother tongue is Afrikaans, I was like, yes, hit the jackpot. That's just, I want people who speak English as second language.
Yes.
Secondly, English-speaking South Africans in the eyes of British people are just as eccentric as ET, even though their first language is English.
Yes,
I mean,
no,
I'm
that
sorry,
is
they are
true.
not in the same category as Canadian, Australia. I'm sorry to break it out to them. So those English-speaking South African thinking coming to Britain, they'll be like meeting close cousin coming home. No, they're pretty much treated as really exotic African safari kind of plants. I don't know how to describe it.
Yes.
The very last point, you keep addressing people as minter in your clips.
Yeah.
What is that term?
People.
People.
Yeah.
Is it like Mensch in German or
I don't know what Mensch means. Is that people?
Mensch means human, people? Yeah.
Yeah,
Minter.
so it's just like a way of going, hey, people, it's me
thought-
again.
Because I look it up, I thought it's like mince meat, mincer. And then look
No,
at that. That's
yeah.
the old-fashioned derogatory term for British English for gay, homosexual men.
Oh, wow.
I have to verify
Good thing
this.
I didn't say it last night. I don't mean it. No.
How do you spell that?
Mense, mense. Means people, and that is the very nice thing about South Africa. Even though English is the common denominator, all 11 official languages can understand English, there are certain words from different languages that sort of everyone knows.
Interwoven into...
Interwoven, so we have like a very cool... Like, because even if you speak English, you'll throw in a lot of Afrikaans words, and like even also people will use some Afrikaans words because
Exactly.
it actually then eventually transcends the language. It doesn't become so some words in South Africa have transcended the language. It then just becomes a South African word as opposed to an Afrikaans word or Xhosa word or Zulu word.
Part of the world has now forgiven South Africa for introducing the noise from Vuvuzela from the 2010.
Well, they've anyway banned it at all the stadiums, so they can pretend like they've forgiven us, but they've just eradicated
I'm
it.
sure that will enter into the world lexicon in 2010. And people are like, where the is this low register noise about?
I love it. But I get it. Yeah, I guess it would be irritating for other people. We apologize for that, but you know.
Don't be. You have
Sorry
other...
for having fun, guys.
No,
Sorry for having fun.
no, you guys need to have fun, especially you guys. Oh, I remember the last point I tried to say. So, long time ago, I'm a dual citizenship. I'm legally British, but I always call myself Taiwanese. And years ago, before I naturalized British, I had to travel with my Taiwanese passport. At that time, it wasn't a good passport, meaning when when I go from UK to Schengen countries, I had to apply for a visa. And I always feel like I'm in a third world refugee camp. However, to my delight, you will see some white people. There will be some white people.
Where?
They are either Russians or South Africans because even though they are white, their passport is just a shit as a third world language.
I was just going to say,
that's the point I want to add to. I'm such a bitch. I'm sorry.
No, I think the only countries that we can go to, I'm talking internationally.
Visa-free.
Visa-free. So obviously like our neighboring countries, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Botswana, Namibia don't need a visa. But like far overseas, I think Israel.
Oh.
Interesting enough. I don't know why. I think it's because during World War II, South Africa did welcome Jewish people in. I think a lot of Jewish people escaped South Africa. I speak under correction. But then Philippines, weirdly enough, I don't know why. Mexico.
Oh.
And I think
that is a really weird, sporadic mix.
That's like a few that I know you can go without visas. But otherwise, pretty much everywhere I go to perform, I need a visa. And it's really irritating because like the whole tour was Australia, UK, Amsterdam. So I had to get an Australian visa, then a UK visa, and a Schengen visa before I even get on the plane.
I'm going to ask you a very
visas.
Industry insider, some probably a bit too in joke, but it's relevant. Have you worked with production companies? They are so used to working only with first world comedians that they do not know they need to factor in all the visa application until it might be way too late.
Don't worry, I remind them. I start going from 3 months before. Hey guys, remember I need a visa.
But some of them actually not aware of the gravity of the situation. They thought, what's the problem? Yeah, we're going to book your flight. Say, no, I need that piece of paper.
No, guys, you need to apply for this shit because I also, like in Australia, it was all online and I got my visa just on email, but I still have to go into the visa application center for my biometric. Need to go for my fingerprints and that stuff. I still need to physically go in for that. You know, I can't like be doing that shit the day before.
That was my Taiwanese passport pre-2008 or 10, and somehow we get upgraded.
So you don't need a visa anymore?
Most major countries we don't. And that's one reason I'm against takeover by China, because if my Taiwanese passport is gone, I have the Chinese passport, I'm downgraded once again.
Oh, no.
Who's getting a bit political? Okay, let's get back to the language.
I have no opinions about China. Absolutely none.
You should.
That's a political statement in itself.
No, I hate it.
Why don't you want to take a stand?
I hope this doesn't offend you, but
no.
Schalk, do you think when you speak English you have an accent?
Yes.
Yes.
I can hear it as well.
You can hear it as well.
I listen back to my voice notes on WhatsApp.
Because I wonder, in South Africa, how different is the accent between English-speaking South African and Afrikaans?
You can definitely hear it.
Actually, it was unnecessary, the question I had, because one of the virtual clip you did for Comedy Central, you talk specific about how other South African mock Afrikaans speakers accent, and they would not have the political correctness. Just do it! I want to hear that. Do they actually do that in this day and age? Do people do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Afrikaans people, they're sort of like a... With Afrikaans people, they're sort of like a free-for-all. Can I make any jokes about Afrikaans people? And we just like, okay, we just take it. That is what I love about South Africans, is that we really can laugh at each other. At comedy gigs, you know, there's mostly Afrikaans people. A closer comedian will come on stage, be like, yeah, you Afrikaans people are like this and you like that. And they laugh. We really can laugh at ourselves. I mean, Trevor Noah is a master. For example, he had this joke, the national anthem. Indian people do this during the national anthem. Afrikaans people do this, and black people do this. English South Africans do this. Each person is like poking fun at them, and almost every group is waiting there like, when is it our turn? When is it our turn?
So is there not one ethnic group that get offended more easily? Everybody is pretty much happy to take the piss out of themselves. Look, so let's say the virtue signaling people saying that you are African, how dare you mock the black South Africans? You have no moral ground to do that. Because that kind of thing may happen in the UK. especially in big cities.
Look, I think when it comes to different races, there's definitely, it gets more tricky and it needs to be navigated better. But I think if you're a white South African and you, for example, write a joke about Indian people in South Africa or black people, and you do it in a clever way and it's not malicious and it's not offensive, I think it will be received well.
And I think in a way, in a multi-ethnicity society, comedy become one of the best vehicle to make people chill out. And
Also, yeah, and
normalize tension.
Comedy was one of the biggest healing methods after apartheid. So much tension after apartheid, and there's still in South Africa a lot of racial tension going around. And then, like in comedy clubs and comedy shows, all that just gets broken down because we're all laughing at the same thing. And I think also for the audience, that's a powerful thing. If you're like a conservative Afrikaans person, you don't really mix with people outside of your race. You're all watching the same comedian. You're all hearing the same joke. Now there's a joke about taxis. I'm laughing at it as a white South African. The black guy next to me is laughing at it. The Indian woman next to me is laughing at it. Suddenly there's this thing of like, hey, we all the same. We all find the same things funny. And I think the place I saw that the most was when I was opening for Trevor Noah, because his shows was very diverse. When I walked on stage, I couldn't see more of one group than another. Yes. There wasn't more white people than black or more black than... It was all mixed. Completely mixed. Always felt that if you had to like do a census, it would be literally equal amount of... It's like someone worked it out mathematically and put that group together. It was really like the rainbow South African nation. I mean, like when people walked out of the show, it was almost like that's the South Africa that we want. It just felt so...
Comedy like, created a shared experience for
just
everyone.
A shared experience, and it just felt like, geez, everyone just loves each other here and gets along. Then obviously the next day it's back to normal.
No, but we're not going to be so naive to think one-night comedy is going to be changing everything. It's like only in a Hollywood movie.
Yeah.
Have you ever faced a crowd initially less white South African and you face a little bit of hostility or reservation from different ethnic groups of South African, but eventually you won them over? Has that happened before? Or the initial reservation is not even a thing? Am I overthinking?
No. That has definitely happened, but I wouldn't say it was hostility. It was more, okay, he's this guy.
What do you have to say about us? What do you know about us?
Yes. That kind of, we really hope this guy's funny and he's going to make us laugh. Otherwise it's going to get really awkward in here. You know, there's a show in South Africa called Blacks Only, which is a play on during apartheid benches and things and bathrooms saying whites only. So this comedian David Cow, absolute legend in South African comedy, one of the first black South African comedians in democratic South Africa, started the show Blacks Only. The lineup is also majority black comedians, and then there's always one token white guy, which is sort of done also as a joke. And David, who's the host of the show, always makes a big thing out of like, hey guys, we got one white guy. Just to keep everyone happy. And often I was the one token white guy at Blacks Only. It's a majority black crowd. There's always like one of my most fun shows to do. Because you walk out and it's, okay, this is out of my comfort zone. But I've always just had the best time doing those shows.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you speak a bit of Zulu or Xhosa?
No.
Or some tonal phrases?
Yeah, like maybe one or two. I feel like if you're just going to learn how to say, hi, how are you in a language, you might as well leave it. Because I mean, like, how far can you go in a conversation? And like for me, I find it irritating when someone can only say, hallo, hoe gaan het? Hi, how are you? In Afrikaans. Because then I'm like, oh, okay, cool, we're speaking Afrikaans. And then, you know, you want to continue. And
now you got me started. Let's do a whole conversation.
Like, no, that's all I have. Then I'm like, okay, well, what was the point of that?
English is your second language.
Yes.
When did you start learning it? At school or with friends or?
I think I was quite lucky when I was young because my neighbors on either side of us were English and they had also young kids and I wanted to play with them because I'm an only child. I mean, English kids are just like, well, we're not going to learn Afrikaans. You know? So it's either you learn English or you don't play with us. Also, TV was English, so it was easier for me to learn English and they were talking English all the time. So I guess I picked it up very quickly. And also, your brain is more like a sponge when you're that age. By the time I went to school, my English was a bit more advanced than most of the other kids because in my social life
you had
at home, I was speaking a lot of English, well, because I didn't have a choice.
What is it with the fate of any language relating to Dutch? You know, that's exactly the same thing in Belgium.
Yeah.
The French speakers wouldn't bother learning Flemish.
Yeah.
They would just expect those Flemish-speaking people to learn their grand French language.
Yes.
Why is it? I don't know.
I mean, they're not completely wrong. English is the world language. I mean, there's just not that much use for them to learn.
Do you feel a little bit of schadenfreude when those cocky English-speaking South African thinking they have the right accent and suddenly they leave South Africa and everyone see them as freaks? Is there a little bit of joy in your heart? They finally get a taste of it.
No, I've always, in my comedy, picked on English people. And I think I've always been able to do it in a way where...
By English people, you mean English South African?
English South Africans, yeah. I've never had any issues with it. I've never had English people like properly...
complain.
Upset, going like...
There's no Karen coming to you after your show.
No. But I guess it also comes away as like a sort of tongue-in-cheek, like we are always the butt of the joke, so this is kind of payback, I guess. But it wasn't like that. It was just more... So I guess that's where I get my my kicks.
Your English is fluent, but in one of the clips, it was a really funny joke. You guys should check it on YouTube. You were talking about, I'm sorry, it is the end of the day. I just can't do any English. Or just say, it's only Monday, chill out, dude. I need to warm up, right?
Yeah.
Do you make those mistakes often? I think you had the example of a preposition that's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Does that happen often to you, or you exaggerate it for the sake of that joke?
No, it does. I mean, like with English, you have good days and you have bad days.
You make it sound like migraine.
No, I swear, like there's days where I just like, oof, my English is...
I'm just noting our Sontag is nodding because she's Swedish. She's like, yeah, I totally get it.
Get it, eh? You get it. English is like, I don't know, it comes and goes. There's days where you just... Like, I'm a runner as well. I like jogging. And there's some days where you're just like, oof. Like, I don't know what's going on today, but like, I'm just really, I'm fast today. My joints feel good. Days where you're just running like a fantastic time because you're just feeling good that day. And there's days where you like, can't explain it, but everything's sore and you just feel slow and sluggish. The same with my English. There's days where I'm just like, I don't know what's happening today with my English feeling amazing. And then there's other days where I'm just like, I can't, like my brain is just cannot.
Okay, so say you're in that
today.
state, but that night you're going to do a show in English. So what sort of warm-up do you do to quell the demons?
No, well, luckily I've done the material enough that it kind of flows. I'm not trying to think of what is the next word because I'm telling a story, which I've told a bunch of times before.
So what enough for performing, but just to get engaged in an actual conversation.
Yeah,
but
then also sometimes, like last night, you saw me improvising with that kid that was up there, like asking him, with Kian, asking him questions. When I'm like riffing, then I'm like, okay, now I really have to concentrate and think.
Interesting.
But like I said, it's also kind of risk-free because if you make a mistake, you just go like, what's the English word? And then people will shout it out from the audience and you're like, okay, don't be cocky. You can always turn it into a joke.
Yeah, we have
easily.
That get out of jail card. So when this podcast is out, you will have finished your UK tour. I went to see Schalk at Soho Theatre last night. It was really, really fun. But I have this... It feels like I gate crashed a South African party. But
it will feel like that,
yeah. But the party was so fun. I enjoyed a lot. But I can tell I didn't enjoy just by a little bit, not as much as the other South African guests, because they could understand some of your references quicker. But for me, it was such an enjoyable event, and I was really glad I went for two reasons. First, I think Schalk has a loyal following of South African expats here. I don't know if I should call them immigrant expat. Let's settle the question another day. The South African will come and watch you. You're aware of that.
Yes.
You also know that you start to attract more international and local audience. So you try to cater to both group. In a way, I could see, because I was reading the review of the same show in Edinburgh, I think you've switched some bits, you've added some local observation, how British people react, how the British royal families are, etc.
Yeah.
One fun thing I noticed is you were describing an experience I never had. For example, going on a safari.
Yes.
Yet, because of your acting out, because the way you make it, it's so relatable. It's down to the very human nature of emotion. I can totally relate. So I managed to enjoy comedy by broadening my horizon. Even I'm talking about, like, I can go to tons of great comedians, but very few of them probably going to cover the topics you cover because they don't come from South Africa. They don't have your life's experience. So I feel I didn't just go to a comedy show. It was different life experience I never had. And that was really enjoyable. There was the original, the novelties. But if you didn't cover them well enough, I would just just closed up and feel like, what are you talking about?
I always want everyone to, at the base level, get the joke. So that's also why I won't use biggest English word I'm going to use today, colloquial Afrikaans. Like, I'm not going to use South African slang or Afrikaans words in my set because that immediately alienates someone who's not from South Africa.
So you're saying that at a gig in South Africa and in London, you would moderate your language level a little bit?
So, like, for example, one of those words that I said is a South African word instead of Afrikaans word, even though technically it's an Afrikaans word, is the word kak, which means shit.
Oh.
So in South Africa, there's no reason for me to say the word shit, because I would just say kak. Because it's Afrikaans, it's more natural for me to use the word kak. In South Africa, every single person in the room will know the word kak.
I don't remember. Maybe I actually understood it as cock, as in the penis.
No. It's spelled K-A-K.
Okay.
Kak. And the word lekker, Dutch also has that word.
Is
lekker.
that tasty?
It can mean tasty, but it can also just be like, yo, what a lekker day out.
Oh,
It was super lekker today. I use the word lekker a lot in my comedy, but I would completely take it out in any overseas gig, even though if 90% of the audience will get it. But like you were there last night, the person I want to look after is you. Because the South Africans are going to laugh whether I say lekker or not lekker. They're going to laugh whether I say shit or kak. But I want you, who is not South African, to enjoy it just as much. But at the same time,
you don't want to neutralize yourself so much that you're so bland. There's not any South African flair.
But like, of course, even if you get the joke about the game drive, right, the safari, but of course it's going to hit harder for a South African who has been on a game drive. Just because you turning to the person next to you and go like, it is like that. It is like, oh my word, the Game Ranger, they do that.
So on this point, I have two questions deriving from that. First is that where you're facing international crowd, do you make slightly more detailed preparation to set up the background, the context, so they can understand a joke? Or you just slow down? Or, for example, do you describe the safari experience differently between a gig in South Africa and in London like last night?
Not describe it differently, but there's certain things that I would set up. Like, for example, the joke where I talk about the difference between Afrikaans girls and English girls in terms of South African English girls. In South Africa, I would just do the joke. I would just say, playing this game, this drinking game with Afrikaans girls is like this, playing it with English girls is like this. But last night, I would have to explain to people first that English South African girls are more like big city girls, whereas Afrikaans girls are more like small town girls. I have to set up that dynamic of, obviously that's generalizing, but I have to set up the dynamic between like English people being a little bit more open-minded, a little bit more worldly, Afrikaans people being a little bit more conservative. I have to set up that dynamic first and explain that.
That's what I want the audience to know, that this is something the performer always thinking, just how much context do I need to build? Do they have enough clues, the social assumptions or stereotype for me to just say it, or do I have to build it up from certain
And
point?
of course, some jokes that I just wouldn't even attempt to do here, not because it's not politically correct or whatever, but it would take so much explaining to try and set it up that
by the time you hit the punchline, it's no longer.
By the time that you hit the punchline, like for example, I've got, like kids will go looking like a snack. Nah. And then I go like, I'm too old to get that reference. Like we'd never said looking like a snack. And then I say the kids today have better snacks though. Like the snacks that they have in the fridge is like really nice snacks. We wouldn't ever have said that because when I was growing up, your snack was a Vienna. Now a Vienna is like a Russian sort of sausage.
Oh.
Back home.
Wiener.
Yeah,
okay.
You know what that is. It's like a sort of long sausage, almost like the Americans would call it a hot dog.
Okay.
Like a long sort of jiggly blah, 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 sausage. But then I would ask people, and they're like, oh yeah, we kind of know a long sausage. But now, by the time I've explained a Vienna is a long sausage back home, and also for our snacks, your mom would warm up a Vienna for you in the microwave, and she would bring the Vienna on like a plate, which is like a really sad snack because she wouldn't always warm it up in the microwave. Sometimes it was just cold.
Just by this point, I feel it's not worth it. It's
exactly.
Too much explanation.
Exactly. So like by the time that I've explained everything, it's just like...
We don't have a Brits here to verify. I think in the English language, they know wiener. That's a reference to a sausage.
Yes.
But Vienna, I don't think it is anything.
Yeah, exactly. And also then I spoke to some British people and they're like, oh, eventually they're like, yeah, we know what you mean, but we also, like, that wasn't really our snacks.
Yeah.
We didn't really have that as snacks.
To say that, I'm going to ask a point. Because you're a South African English speaker, there were points when I would hesitate. I get your reference, but it's a glitch. I need to adjust it. One was when you said a public school.
Yes.
And it took me a second to realize, oh, you're talking about a state school. But before I came to the UK, I would have called it a public school. But they called it a private school, a public school here. So I was confused for one split second.
I did actually make that adjustment in Edinburgh. Then I would say government school.
Yeah.
A government school and a private school. But I just came from Australia, and there they... They do the same as in South Africa. Public school is your
Actually, I think the UK should make it illegal to call a private school a public school because it is not for public. It's not so for expensive. It is a little mind trick, but my mind glitched a bit. And then from the context, I managed to work it back. Oh, he's talking about he went to a normal state school. The other example is when you say a home phone. I understood exactly what you said, but my mind glitched a bit because I'm more used to hearing landline.
Landline.
And I glitched for a half second and I managed to catch up. I understood every single step, but that was just like, why would he say that? But I think that's the flair of you being an exotic comedian in a way. At opening of your show, you mentioned that people would always ask you, where's the accent from?
Yeah, like I would say like Americans or British often, they go, is it Australian or New Zealand?
Yeah.
Mostly overseas, people would ask, where's your accent from?
But you see, when people hear accent, I do think people make the judgment, is it worth asking or probably I could work it out?
People love guessing. That's also like...
It's interesting enough for them to say, I just couldn't resist anymore. I got to ask you, tell me where your accent is from.
Mostly people would guess. They love it when they write.
I would guess Kiwi. It sounds very close to Kiwi to me because of the vowel. But after 3 sentences, like, not exactly, but I'm not sure. I don't know where it is from.
Yeah. People love when they guess and they correct because it makes them feel like, ooh, I'm worldly. So people always go, I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess. South African. Okay, cool.
But in the UK, they also have this pub quiz culture. And I think it has to do with that.
Yeah.
They like to get the trivial question correct. Does it bother you, people, when they ask you this question?
No, not at all.
But your accent is different from an English-speaking South African, right?
Yeah,
Afrikaans accent would be different. I was listening to your episode interviewing the musician Jules. Her English is very different from yours, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious, the Afrikaans English in South Africa, South African accent, yeah.
Okay, so...
But even within English, I guess the same with like Cockney British and Royal British are both very British.
Yes, although certain international people, they wouldn't recognize the Cockney type of English. They probably only recognize the RP, the sort of Downton Abbey or the Queen's English.
Yes, but like in South Africa, even within the group of English South Africans, you would have your more posh English South Africans and you would have like what we call your boots, which are like your more jockey guys. Be like, hey, my brew.
The cheeky lads here in Britain?
Yes, yeah, like almost like your proper lads. So even within South African English, you do have little different pockets. Subcategories. And then even Afrikaans people, I would say a proper Afrikaans farmer who lives in the middle of nowhere on a farm.
Yeah.
Would probably have a much thicker Afrikaans accent.
So are the African population more often in a rural area? Is that the reason why they are butt of the joke? I don't know, is it as severe as what Americans see the Pennsylvanian Dutch or not quite as secluded?
I wouldn't say majority of them are on farms or whatever. It's just, I guess, this stereotype of Afrikaans people, especially during apartheid, was like the big farmer with the big beard who's riding around on his tractor. That just became the stereotype.
Okay. The irony is most British people are not aware. You mentioned it briefly last night, the concentration camps when British were fighting the Anglo-Boer war. I was aware of this war, but I was not aware of the concentration camps. And I bet the British people, when they hear your joke, they probably didn't recognize what's that, but they just think, oh, it's not relevant to the joke. They just didn't really think about it.
I guess also because those concentration camps wouldn't have been as long in time as during Nazi Germany. So I think kind of fades a bit more into history.
Yeah, but my point is the hypocrisy of they're not aware and they're not obliged to learn about.
Well, history. Yeah, I used to have material about Obviously, Afrikaans people were more the enforcers of apartheid.
What do you mean by enforcer? So was it not equally enforced by English and Afrikaans South African?
It was, but Afrikaans was more the dominant language during apartheid. So I guess it felt more like Afrikaans people doing it, even though it was the white people of South Africa doing it. But anyway, it would have been easier years ago for like British people to just put you in a box if they hear that you're Afrikaans as like a racist.
Yeah.
You know, and when I actually started doing club gigs in London, interesting enough, it just the jokes weren't landing and I couldn't understand why, because I wasn't doing political jokes. Like my one joke was about like being on the toilet and in a public bathroom and then someone knocks on the door and then how awkward you are. Back home, it was just absolutely killing. And I'm like, this is a universal subject matter. Like, why is it not working? And then a friend of mine who's a comedian in South Africa, who's British, when I told him this, he said, dude, you need to remember when you walk on stage as an Afrikaans South African. Now it's changed a bit over the years, but people assume this dude's a racist and they're just nervous because they're expecting any moment you to make a racist joke. So you need to start your set by putting everyone's mind at ease. Don't worry, I'm a liberal person. I'm not going to say anything racist. And the next time I came back to London, my opening gag was basically the short version is just like, don't worry, I'm not racist. I did so much better. Just saying that at the beginning, like, hey guys, I'm Afrikaans, I'm from South Africa. Don't worry, I'm not racist. It just made everyone like, oh, okay, cool. We can enjoy the set. And then they watching you without going like, oh my word, when is it going to happen? But anyway, so I used to have material about just like, it was always easy to just make Afrikaans people equal oppressor. But like there was a time, a few decades before that, where Afrikaans people were severely oppressed. And then we went and did the same thing, which is bad. But it was an interesting dynamic back home to talk about that and play around with that dynamic. Because you're turning something on its head. You're turning the oppressor into the oppressed. A lot of people forgot about the Anglo-Boer War, you know, so reminding them about it's like, oh, yeah, that happened. Shit, kind of forgot about that. Because apartheid completely, obviously, overshadowed all of that.
But it's mind-blowing. As a fellow foreign comedian, we have to address our foreigners. But that label, that sort of image is almost engraved into the Afrikaan thing that you not only have to address your foreign, you have to clarify that I'm not racist because that is such a big image attached to your identity.
Yeah, I must say, not anymore. I think, I don't know what has changed. Even 5 years ago, it was a lot different. Maybe Trevor Noah just really opened the eyes of...
I think he provided a lot of nuanced view into this
of South
subject
Africa.
matter. People have a very
people just
binary view of...
Because people just seem to know now, when I say from South Africa, people just seem to know more about our country. People also seem to know more South Africans now. Where I guess like 5 years ago, people had a very one-dimensional view of South Africa. You'd have to do a lot more explaining. Now I feel like most people just kind of, oh yeah, I know South Africa, I know what goes on there.
Can you indirectly answer what was intended as my last question? In South Africa, in the home market, you obviously have to explain your Afrikaan, but where you perform outside South Africa, are you just a South African or do you typically specify you're also Afrikaans South African?
I just feel Afrikaans is such a big part of my identity, and that's why this sounds like weird now, but the other dynamic now is that some Afrikaans people, like for example in Australia, now I'm doing the show in English, but they are homesick. They want to hear Afrikaans. So then I get Afrikaans people afterwards saying to me, why didn't you speak more Afrikaans in the show? I wanted to hear my language tonight. That's why I came to the show. And then I'd say to them, the show was in Afrikaans, even though it was in English. Because Afrikaans is I am Afrikaans. I can't separate, even now, sitting here speaking to you in English, I'm Afrikaans. I can't change that. And my accent and everything is Afrikaans. I like saying I'm Afrikaans because it's such a big part of my identity. I don't feel it's an accurate enough description of me to say I'm South African. I guess the same as like how I think an Asian American wouldn't just say I'm American. I think they would say I'm Asian American, that it's part of their identity. Or like a First Nation Aboriginal Australian wouldn't go to another country and just say I'm Australian. I think they would say I'm Australian Aboriginal just because it's such a big, proud part of their identity.
Yeah, I think that analogy absolutely nailed that. I completely understand right now. And also that's what I feel when I describe going to your show, when I say that I gate crash a South African party. I wasn't unwelcome, but I could feel how much a group therapy for those South African residents in the UK are. You provide a bit of home to them. And some of your jokes are so on the nose that it really... I don't know whether for them is that it hit home or it's too close to home for them. When you describe the crime situation in South Africa, people were laughing almost with tears because it was so accurate. And
I think in the UK, like once again, I just have to say, like I'm generalizing like everything on the podcast because everything you say, obviously there's always an exception to the rule. But I think South Africans in the UK maybe be even like that little bit more homesick than South Africans in Australia. Because Australia is...
At least not cold.
Yeah, exactly. Australia... The climate is way more like South Africa. Australians are also more similar to South Africans, just the type of people they
the
are.
rankness or brazen attitude.
Even the landscape. Like if you in the cities and stuff, it doesn't feel that removed from South Africa. Whereas I think the UK
also
is
is
very
the
different.
Southern hemisphere.
Yes,
in one of
exactly.
your jokes, you say to someone, put a shirt on. It's July. It's not that hot.
Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
how? Because July is supposed to be hot.
Yeah, July is ice cold in South
And it took me
Africa.
a minute to work. Oh, but then South Africa is in Southern Hemisphere for its reverse.
Yes. So I think that it's a way easier, and the South Africans in Australia also said that. They said it's a way easier
transition.
Adjustment to make to climatize to Australia than it is. I mean, it's just way more cloudy. It's dark. Also, the city, London, doesn't look like any place in South Africa. There's no place like it. I think it's a way of harder of a transition to make here.
Not like Namibia.
Not like Namibia, no. Namibia that we call, because we've got 9 provinces in South Africa, they call Namibia the 10th province.
All right. Okay. I don't think I have any listener from Namibia, but I may keep that sentence in.
No, I mean, it's not offensive. I think they know because it's so accessible to us. You just drive over the border and
So you're not interested in taking Lesotho, but Namibia is a better choice.
Yeah. I haven't been to Lesotho. Namibia is nice. I would move to Namibia. There's only 3 million people.
Okay, I have to say, for the last hour, you were very, sentimental and serious. It was unlike you I saw on stage. You were vivid. You were so expressive.
Yeah.
You are like when a cartoon is for the first time made into a live version. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like a Scooby-Doo movie when you have real actors to act out with the cartoon character. You look like a human actor to act a cartoon character.
Yeah.
That's how expressive you are as a comedian. All your acting out, your facial expression, all the noise you make was an absolute entertaining show. If people have a chance, definitely catch Schalk. But you revealed your very soft side today. I didn't intend to. I was trying to get you there. I didn't know you would open up so fully. I really appreciate that. Now, let's end some not so serious affectionate question. Let's see how close you can get. Okay. Right. So the Office for National Statistics made a guess of how many South Africans there are in the UK as of 2020. One thing I did notice is that last night, the room was very white. But before accusing you, I looked it up on the internet. Is it because the South African in the UK tend to be white to start with, which was right. That's why. So I want you to guess how many South Africans are living in the UK.
I'm going to guess 70,000.
70,000. All right. Even though it was an estimate, the correct answer is 229,000.
That makes me depressed on that.
No,
I could
next
only
time
fall 5 nights at the Soho.
That's what I'm saying. Your tour should be twice as long.
I could do 5 nights at the O2 with those numbers. Where are those South Africans?
I think there's a human smuggling business because in 2011 it was only 180 or 140. I can't remember. So guys are growing for whatever reason it is.
Jeez, okay.
All right.
Crime is growing in South Africa. So the more crime grows, the more population, South African populations everywhere else will grow. I promise you that.
Yeah, because Elon Musk ain't helping, is
No,
it?
Elon Musk is not helping us. Elon Musk is leaving us to our own devices.
On that weird note, I'm going to thank again my guest today. There's a Schalk Bezuidenhout.
Perfect.
I hope I done it justice. Thank you. And have a great show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.